another key lesson for leadership. Any leader needs to know this. Family always comes first.
Indeed.
Isn't that the truth?
Indeed. Yeah.
Tell
It's
me what you
interesting.
witnessed.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
interesting you say this. I actually took a times management course while I was working with EDS. And there I went thinking that the teacher was going to teach us how to set up our days, how to schedule ourselves, and so on. But the very first question that he asked was, what matters most to you? Right?
Wow.
He says, write it down. Don't tell me anything. What matters most to you? And I think there were like 20 people taking that course. And everyone, absolutely everyone, either wrote about their kids, their wife, or their family. No one wrote anything about job or work.
Welcome to the Leaders in Tech podcast. I am your host, David Mancella. This podcast is being created to recognize the amazing contribution that leaders in technology do to society, especially on working on their organizations, empowering people to create technologies that make this world a better place. And today with us, we have an amazing leader in technology. His name is Genaro. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David, for having me. This is amazing. I'm very excited about this opportunity.
Fantastic. Genaro, for the audience, can you tell me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
My name is Genaro Liriano. I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And for a living, I work as a senior information security advisor. Actually, I lead the senior information security advisory team for technology operation at CIBC, which is one of the Canada top 5 banks at the moment.
Yes, one of the biggest banks in
Yes,
Canada.
indeed.
Incredible. And it's an honor to have you with us, Genaro, in your screening interview. I realize how amazing of a leader you are. And that's what this podcast is about, to inspire the next generation on getting to know how to become a great leader, and specifically in the technology realm, because it's very different than any other lines of leadership. So tell me, what do you enjoy the most about your job, your current work?
um, I believe that working with a team of professionals, right? Like my team currently is uh, 12, and actually I'm hiring for a 13th member as we speak. So working with this team of diverse individuals, right? They all come from different cultural background and they all bring different perspective, although they're all professionals within information technology and information security, but coming from a diverse background, they bring a different perspective in solving problems. So working with this team, it's just exciting when we're trying to troubleshoot or solve a complex problem. Just hearing the different perspective from everyone is just amazing. So I really enjoy that aspect of the job.
That is fantastic, especially having the big responsibility of securing a bank with so many thousands and thousands of employees and billions of dollars in assets, right?
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
let's figure out how you got here. Let's go back to your high school years. Where were you in your last year of high school, and how did you? What did you do right after you graduated high school?
So back to yeah, high school year. So I'm originally from the Dominican Republic, and during high school, as part of the high school, you do a prep for college. So you decide like what type of subjects interest you the most. So whether it's liberal arts or science. So then you pre-select the courses that you will take once you move to the next level. So mine was around physics and mathematics. So that's where I specialized in my high school years. So the last few days of my high school, I was dreaming of becoming this scientist or engineer in physics, developing new technology for the future. Like back then, I envisioned myself coming up with some type of device that could track cars. This is pre-GPS. I was thinking around that technology right
Wow.
around the end of my high school, thinking like, with all these car thefts, maybe I could design some type of device that I can track where the cars go, and maybe the police will track them and the insurance company will be easy on the policies and what they charge for policies and whatnot. So that's what I was thinking the last few weeks of my high school, actually.
Revolutionary for the time, right?
For
Because
that time, yeah.
GPS wasn't there yet, right?
Yes,
Amazing.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
So did you get accepted into school, into university?
So life has different purpose, a different roadmap, right? Like also at that time, I was into arts. So I was acting and doing comedy. I was actually part of a comedy club. And through this comedy club, we travel across the Dominican Republic doing shows and whatnot. And during one of the shows, one other comedian heard me speak. And I was maybe around 16, 17 years old. And he says, "Wow, you have a lovely voice. Have you ever decided to go into broadcasting?" It's like, I think you will do amazing if you go into broadcasting. So instead of going to university to study physics and electronics, I decided to go and study broadcasting instead,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So I
You got
joined the
inspired.
national. Yes, I got inspired. So I joined I say I'm young, right? So I could always take my dream career for my own purpose in the future. But let me, let me give it a shot. Let me see what broadcasting is all about. So that's what I did actually. That's my education in the DR was basically broadcasting. We call locución, right? So I
Wow.
graduated from the program, and actually you can't exercise the profession unless you go for a certification, a national certification through the government, where they give you a certificate and an ID and a license to actually speak in public. Otherwise, you're
Wow.
not authorized to exercise the job.
To work for radio or television, you need to have that
Exactly.
license.
So that's what I did basically. I went that route instead of going the scientist route. So I studied broadcasting, and during broadcasting, I learned about telecommunication, and that subject really captured my imagination. Again, back to my high school years, thinking, oh, developing this device. So I learned about the waves and how radio transmission works and so on. So that was always a little spark in me, right? So when I moved to eventually, fast forward, I moved to Canada in 1993 from the Dominican Republic. And here I was looking for a job as a broadcaster. Back then, we had no radio station that will welcome uh, a Dominican with the accent to speak on live on English radio stations. So I had to reset myself and say, okay, um, what do I do now? Here I am, new country, can't find a job in my field of study and my profession. So maybe it's time that I go back to school. And actually, at that time, there was an institute called the Wright Institute of Technology, and they had an electronics program. So I enrolled in that program here in Toronto, and I did the program for about 2 years, and I completed a diploma program in electronics. While I was doing that program, I touched the computer for the first time, and then
Wow.
my inquisitive mind took me and said, "You know what? How does this work? How do we convert the signal, from um, AC to DC, and then from DC into digits?" how can we talk with the switches and so on? So there I went. Then I had to learn how computer talk with
So
electricity.
I guess
How
this was early 90s, right?
this
What
is, yeah, that's around
early
80
90s, right?
93
Yeah,
93 94,
right.
when this happened. So I enrolled in some continuing education courses through Ryerson University to learn about assembly language, how how the computer actually communicate with the uh, memories and ROM, RAM, and then from there I learned, okay, so there's an operating system. So I had to learn about operating system. So I learned about Unix, the operating system. From there, then I enrolled into the A plus program, how to fix and assemble PCs and laptop and printers and so on. Then from there, I moved on and I learned about networking. So I did the whole CCNA, CCNP program. From there, then I learned the whole Microsoft MCSE program that at that time was very popular in
Very
the
popular. Network
yes,
engineer, certified network engineer from Microsoft. You had that, you were somebody.
you exactly. So eventually I landed, fast forward taking all those various technical courses. Then at one time I was working for a company called Terranet, supporting the mainframe. I was doing mainframe changes and customer service calls as well, supporting the entire uh, land registration system for the province of Ontario, where they use dumb terminals to connect into the mainframe. So every Monday, for some reason, people forgot their mainframe password. So they had to call me and I will reset the passwords for them. And at times I assist in doing some database changes in the mainframe. As you know, the mainframe is all hex. So I had to convert codes from binary into hex. So that was a beautiful experience to do those changes within the mainframe. Eventually, through that company, I met the CIO and the CIO of the company. One day I said, listen, I need a change. I've done so many courses, so many technical courses, and I'm looking for a change. This was around 2005. And he invited me to a meeting where he mentioned, have you ever thought of security? And I'm like, security? You want me to walk around like with like a security guard, a jacket,
And a
scaring
gun and a
people,
bat.
scaring people away? He said, no, 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 no. This is information security. I'm like, oh, what is? He says, have you never heard of it? I'm like, no, seriously, no. He's like, okay, so why don't you do a research about information security? Tell you what, we have a requirement. There's a new standard coming out next year. That was in 2005. So the standard was coming out in 2006, which is now the very famous PCI DSS standard. It says we need to comply to that standard because we service the province of Ontario. So I need to build a security program from the ground up. And I think you'll be ideal in this role. But do the research, come back to me. Let me know if you are willing to do this.
That's amazing.
And
It's when I hear these stories, number one, so let's look back.
yes,
You are a professional broadcaster. You know how
yes,
to speak in public. You're doing radio, television. You move to a different country. You cannot get a job in Canada, obviously. The first thing that I notice is number one, you need to be able to lead yourself in order to progress in life, right? So you took the leap of faith and you went into an electronics engineering course, but you knew that that wasn't enough, so you kept going.
yes,
And I bet you were saying, okay, like you probably had very hard jobs that you didn't like while you were getting yourself trained in this. But you were willing to let go of all your training and your past profession in order to get ahead in life. And now you fell in love with computers. And now you're a professional in computers, working with what you learned. And now you need a change. So you are asking the boss, how can I change? And he gives you this amazing opportunity of something that you know nothing about. That takes faith. and it takes leadership, and it takes discipline. And those three things, I believe, is the foundation to start to become a very good leader, isn't it?
Indeed, and and it's also thanks to those leaders that you meet throughout your life, right? Through the various careers, you have individuals that inspire you to keep going, right? Like for example, this leader that I met, he basically told me about this new uh, standard that was coming, and how just not knowing anything about security, he just told me about it. He sparked a light bulb in me, and I researched it, then got back to him, say, you know what, game on. I'm willing
Let's
to
do
do
it.
this. Let's do it, right? So before I knew it, I was in Ottawa, in Canada, Ottawa, at the Entrust headquarters, taking a comprehensive PKI and cryptography course with them for an entire week, because one of the things that we were going to do was refresh the PKI, public key infrastructure, within the company. And you know, he needed me to learn this solution. So this was one of the first training that I did in information security. From then on, just the rest is history. Eventually, I took my CISSP exam.
Well, wait.
Yeah.
But actually, I want to know how you actually created a security, an IT security department. I mean, like this back in 2005. I mean, I've been writing software since the 80s. And even since the late 80s, I had to put some checks in place in order to not to get viruses in through my software. So I knew about not internet, but software security since 89, when I wrote my first software, and that kept evolving. But what they were asking you for is completely different. It's a whole new level of security, and it's a company-wide security in order to communicate with the government. How do
Yes.
you manage that?
No, thank you.
What
Thank you.
steps did you
Great.
take?
Good. Yeah, great question. So, in essence, right, the beauty of this was that the actual standard provided specifications of the various layers of control that needed to be implemented in order to meet or pass the requirements, right? So, we use that as a model to actually build the team and build the technologies, or put together the technologies that were required to help the organization pass the PCI DSS certification. So how we did it, basically, we took a glance. What were the technologies that we had already in place that could help us in meeting the requirements, and which were the net new technologies that we required to bring it on board. So back then, security was pretty much antivirus. That was it. The famous Norton. That's what enterprise had, and you needed like 5 or 6 different tools installed on your endpoint just to adhere to the requirements. So you needed not only the antivirus, but you needed now a host-based firewall system, not only a network-based firewall, but now you needed a host-based firewall. Then you needed IDS, IPS, the intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system, not only at the network, but also at the endpoint. And then right around the time of PCI DSS, the infamous malware became very popular. It was no longer just a script kiddie virus that was out there, but then other type of attacks or infections started to happen, right? Like worms, um, various attacks through social engineering attacks that were used through adware, right? And
Trojan
so on.
horses, right? The Trojan
Yes.
horses, horrible,
Yeah,
right?
the Trojan horses, exactly, right? So that led to a need for new technologies to come, and that's where the anti-spyware solution came in. So back then, you had to go and procure all these various solutions independently, because no one ever thought like, how about we produce a package that can do all these
That has everything.
activities, that does everything. Eventually, I believe that Semantic was the first one that came up with the semantic endpoint protection, where they actually bought other companies and put a package together that allowed or brought all these services in one package. So it was challenging to say the least, but eventually, like you see today, now you have hardly any agents running at an endpoint, and actually you see, like, for example, Microsoft providing the security services, so you don't even need to, as part of the OS, as part of the operating system. So you are saving in expenditure, and actually their security controls are pretty strong, and this is just amazing. So let's see what happens in the next 20 years.
And another lesson, right? A leader always finds a way, and a leader is always up to the challenge and knows that there is a way,
Indeed.
right? Because what is a mainframe administrator doing becoming a security officer? That didn't exist, right?
Indeed, something that was foreign to me, right? But I raised to the occasion, and thanks for the opportunity that I was given, right? The training and the coaching and mentoring that those seniors above me provided, that's what helped me get to where I am today.
And that's another thing, right? Like if you work for a very good leader, he will make you into a leader, isn't it? Like they will
Indeed,
actually coach you to go up the ladder so that you can,
indeed.
better yourself,
Yeah,
right?
and this is something that I'm working with my team now. Um, to me, personal development and develop continuous um, development of their technical skills is of utmost importance to me, right? And when I work with them, there's like, you have this passion, like they tell me, you have this passion, but why do you give so much? Like, why are you always wanting us to self-improve and become better at what we do? I'm like, because I'm not here forever,
Exactly.
right? And I'd like you, for those that are coming after, that you help them as well. You mentor them. You pass, you pay it forward. So whatever I'm giving to you, pay it forward, because someone did the same to me,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
right? So they pass it on to me. Now I'm passing it on to you, and my hope is that you do the same for the next generation of IT leaders, right? That you coach them, you guide them, you provide be patient with them, and provide the guidance to help them get to the next level, right? Because, for example, look at CIBC has been in service for over 150 years. So that means that the original leaders are all gone, but
Oh yeah.
they passed the buck, right? They paid it forward to the next generation of leaders. And now it's our turn to do the same, reciprocate, right?
And also if you notice, I bet 150 years ago it was probably a tiny little bank,
Yeah,
and now it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation with
corporation.
thousands of users. So that means that the leaders in that organization did such an amazing job that they were able to build a culture and create more and more leaders in a ladder that is efficient, is prosperous, and is making Canada a better country. Isn't that amazing?
Indeed, right? Like, that's the vision. That's where the vision comes into play, right? So that's where the management side of leadership comes into play. Having the right vision, right?
Yeah.
Then creating your mission that will guide you. From your mission, you derive your culture, right? This is how we're going to move forward. The vision, for example, for CIBC was that there was another bank that I used to work for. They are 50 years older than CIBC, right? But they cater to a specific demographic within society. And the visionaries of CIBC, they said, no, we want to create a bank for the people. We
Right.
want to open it up for the entrepreneurs, for the people that they know how, they have a sewing machine, and they want to start a small business at home. And that was the vision of these leaders that got together and formed this bank. And that's over 150 years ago. And today, CIBC lives for the same values and the same principles. So it's a
Amazing.
people-oriented culture, right? And I'm very happy and fortunate to be working for this organization. Actually, this was one of the triggers for me to join CIBC, was how much they value the people aspect, right? Like when I interview with our CISO, Joel Bianco, he basically told me, Genaro, we can have the most expensive technology, we can buy it. We're a bank, we have the finance, we have the money. However, without the right people, those technologies mean nothing.
It's
So
true.
my
Oh,
focus is on the
the
people.
people. That is so true. Without the people, the technology means nothing.
Nothing, right? So just by him saying that, it's like, oh, I'm sold.
Of course, because the culture is beautiful. And then
Yes,
you're gonna know
yes,
that you're gonna work in a place that they value you, that they're going to nurture you, and they're going to give you the wiggle room you need to grow and to let your team grow, right?
exactly. And that's what's been happening.
What happened after the land registration company? Where do you go after?
So within the land registration company, I was actually working prior to joining Terranet. I was working for a company called EDS, Electronic Data System. I don't know if you remember back
Yeah.
in the 70s, 80s, Rose Perot founded this corporation from Texas, and it became like a powerhouse in technology. And actually, EDS, that was their focus. He said, we are a technology company that don't really sell technology. We sell the services, the people that actually can code and make technologies for others. And
Mhm.
it was an amazing corporation. So actually, Terranet had a subcontract with EDS to help them with the land registration project. So I was working for EDS. Eventually, Terranet um, closed the contract with EDS and actually hire some of the key individuals from EDS into Terranet, and that's how I make it into Terranet. It was from EDS into Terranet. So after that, so I joined Terranet around 1999, and I worked with them until 2014 in various roles. But the one that I lasted the longest was within information security from 2005 until my departure in 2014.
And that redefined your life and your whole career, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. It was like my center, my university was there in information security, because building a security program from the ground up and help being part of that was just an amazing experience. So towards the end of my career there, I was more in the architecture, serving more as a security architect than doing the hands-on operational activities. So then what happened is that you become popular, I guess. We not only passed the PCI certification in 2006, 2007, but we sustained it until the moment that I left in 2014. We never failed the certification. And I believe Terranet is probably the first, if not the first, one of the first PCI DSS certified enterprises in Canada, to be honest.
That's very hard to do. It's not easy.
It's not
Yeah,
easy.
it's pretty hard.
Exactly. So because of that, some people came knocking and they needed help. And that corporation was Canadian Tire. They were in the midst of going through their PCI DSS certification. They came with an offer that I couldn't refuse, and I joined them. And but unfortunately, their office was in Oakville, which is about 45 minutes in the morning to drive there, but to come home, it was taking almost 2 hours
Wow.
in traffic jams and so on. So at that time, My wife was expecting our daughter, and I could, like I was nervous all the time. Like, what if something happens while I'm stuck in a traffic jam, right? So because of that, unfortunately, I had to rescind that opportunity and find something within the Toronto environment or area. So that's when Bank of Montreal came in and gave me an opportunity as an information security officer for them.
That's beautiful. Another key lesson for leadership. Any leader needs to know this. Family always comes first.
Indeed,
Isn't that the truth?
indeed, yeah. It's
When you make the
interesting.
mistake.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
interesting you say this. I actually took a times management course while I was working with EDS, and there I went thinking that the teacher was going to teach us how to set up our days, how to schedule ourselves, and so on. But the very first question that he asked was, "What matters most to you?" Right?
Wow.
He says, "Write it down. Don't tell me anything. What matters most to you?" And I think there were like 20 people taking that course, and everyone, absolutely everyone, either wrote about their kids, their wife, or their family. No one wrote anything about job or work. Everyone wrote about family. And that set the tone for that training. Basically, if what matters most to you is your family, why are you working 12 hours, 14
Right.
hours, and neglecting what matters most to you? So we need to learn how to plan our life, taking care of those that matter most to us. And that set the tone to that beautiful time management training back in the days.
And it's true because at the end of the day, you only have one life. And being a leader is important to understand the priorities in life. If you make the mistake to put your job before your family, you're going to lose your family. But you could also lose your job. Even if you're an
Yes,
entrepreneur, you could actually go bankrupt too. So that if
yes,
you actually sacrifice your family for your career, you may not have any of them at the end of the day,
indeed.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's
And it's
absolutely right.
important. I was doing an interview with an entrepreneur yesterday, and he says that one of his company policies is that nobody is allowed to work overtime. They work
Wow.
8 hours a day and 8 hours a day only. And he had set up his business in such a way that nobody needs to work overtime. What a beautiful concept, eh?
Work-life balance, right?
Exactly.
And actually that's what motivated me to move from the operational side, because when you're working in operations in data centers and back in the days we carried the pagers and you would get paged at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. You gotta get up and log on and right and service and fix whatever broke down. And that actually what motivated me to get into more of the management and risk management aspect of the role rather than the operational side.
Right.
So it's looking for that work life balance so that I could spend that time with what matter most to me, my family.
Exactly. And now the other side is you put too much attention on your family and your career suffers and you never grow. Or even worse, you fail to provide. In the Bible, it says that the person that fails to provide their family is a cursed person.
Yes, yes,
So it's like, okay, you set balance and it makes sense. You have to have both. For example, if you are in operations and you get a call at 2 in the morning and it's your job, you have to get up and you have to go do your job because
indeed.
that's your role.
That's
That
the
doesn't mean
role.
that you're gonna leave your family, you're gonna leave them and never see them for like 14 hours a day. No, it's just the balance, right?
Well, this brings a story. Actually, my two boys were around 7 and 9 around that time, where I was on primary call. So I was on call, and something happened with our certification authority that directories went down, the LDAP directories, and no one could figure out. But I took that day off because I promised my kids that I was going to take them to Canada's Wonderland for the day. And as I was packing the car and the kids were getting ready, I get that page, that dreaded
Oof.
page. And I had, you know, asked my kids to excuse me, but I had to go and take care of this situation. No one was able to solve the problem because at that moment, there were the people with the skill set were not as senior as I was at the moment. So I needed to be there helping them and guiding them on how to solve the issue. That actually turned out to be a 5-minute call that lasted 23 hours.
Wow.
So I had to
Commitment.
suspend, yes, I had to suspend the day with my kids. And still today, they're now older boys. They still remember, they're 28 and 26 years old. And they still remember, Dad, do you remember when you promised you were going to take us to? So, right. I go, yes, but I did. Eventually, I took you guys, but I had the commitment. That was my job. That was my role. So I had to be there. So that's the discipline that comes in working in this
Yeah.
type of IT roles.
And again, and but you are, that's part of being a leader, right? A leader is there to facilitate the work of your employees. You, as a leader of your team, realize that they couldn't solve it, so you had to go there and teach them how to do it, so that the business could continue. Because if you say no, I took the day off and I'm not gonna touch it, you may not have a job when you come back tomorrow,
Indeed,
right?
indeed.
And then you're cursed because you're not supplying your
Because
family.
exactly.
Eh?
Yeah. So it seems like I haven't been cursed because thanks God, since my arrival to Canada, I have not been unemployed. I've always sustained
What a blessing.
employment and again, balancing life, personal
Yeah.
development, and work. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like your life have to everything intertwines with each other. You just need to learn how to balance your life.
Yeah. And I mean, like, being unemployed is normal, right? People lose their jobs all the
Yes,
time. But my point is, you have to do whatever it takes to provide to your family, right? And
indeed.
if life turns hard, then you work harder. If one job doesn't make it, you have to do 2 or 3 jobs, whatever it takes. But you have to provide for your family, right?
Yeah, use the difficult time as an opportunity for what's
Yeah.
next, right? Like,
Yeah.
coming here with a dream, working in the radio station as a broadcaster, that didn't happen. So that door closed. However, other opened up, right? And it's just pursuit of happiness, always trying to, and then sometimes I sit back, I'm like, but why am I doing this? And when I look back at my life, I'm like, it's not for me. I'm doing this to, provide a better life for those that I love, for those that I care the most. Just
Yeah.
amazing how life is.
And another thing that I I must touch on, looking at your life experience gives me another. So my job, by the way, is to get the golden nuggets, to get the lessons out of your experience.
Yes,
And one of the things that you're telling me for the audience is that your identity is not your job. It's not even your career. Because as what happened to you, Genaro, you were a professional broadcaster. If you were to put your identity to that, and then life puts a roadblock and you cannot do that anymore, then you will have fallen into deep depression because you
it,
thought you were a broadcaster, but you're not. You had the role as a broadcaster for a period of time, and then you became an IT professional. And now you are a senior IT leader.
indeed,
It changed, right? Or imagine you would have married the identity to be a network administrator or a mainframe administrator, which there is nothing wrong with that. But if you put your life and your personal identity in that role, you would have never become, an IT security officer,
indeed. Yeah.
right?
And who knows what tomorrow brings? Guess what? Now I am enrolled in a Bachelor of Science of Business Administration.
Wow.
Right? Because I've been working for the past 8 years in the financial industry, right? And I hear all the economists and the accountants and using all the lingo and the accounting and economics lingo. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's a good opportunity. Like during the pandemic, I had extra time because we were not commuting. So I say, you know what? How about I learn about this lingo? So when I go and talk to them about the security risk, I can articulate it or better articulate it in a business sense so that
Beautiful.
we can understand each other. And here I am. I'm completing my first year now. Actually, this term ends in 2 weeks, and that's my first year of a 4-year program.
Congratulations. And
Thank
that's
you.
another lesson for a great leader. A great leader always knows that learning never ends and that you need to fall in love with learning. And you also need to teach your employees that they need to keep on learning, constant improvement, constant learning, because
Indeed.
life, especially life in the IT world, is just moves so fast.
That's
It's hard
correct.
to catch up. If you stop
Yes.
learning, you get obsolete.
Yes. That's absolutely right. And now with the advances in technology, where everything, like back in the days when I started, everything was an appliance, was a bare metal solution, a switch, a server. Now everything is going software defined, right? Like you see cloud, you see even networking is all software defined. So for us, the tech leaders that, we forged our learning in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, we need, if we don't change with the times, like now everything is becoming code based, software defined. Now you hear about AI, machine learning, all these technologies. So if we don't learn about that, if I don't learn and keep up on how to protect, sustain the security posture of the bank when these net new technologies come in, then I'll become obsolete,
Yeah.
right? So we need to remain in a learning cycle while working in IT.
And it's learning is fun anyway. So that's the thing. It's like it's not you don't learn because you have to, you learn because you fell in love with learning new things. Right?
Indeed, right? It's just amazing. Like just reading about AI and how so many corporations are so scared of, like for example, a Chat GPT. That's the big topic in major enterprises. The big monster under the bed is Chat GPT, and and then there's the fear on the workforce. A lot of people thinking that they will lose their jobs to AI and so on, right? So instead of fearing it, why not learn about it and see how can I leverage this technology to make things better, right? Because that's
Yeah.
the whole purpose of new technologies is to help humanity become better at whatever we do, right? And how to help society, how to help the economy. So let's embrace the new technology, understand the risk. Everything we do comes with an inherent risk. But what can we do with that inherent risk? What controls can we apply so that the residual risk becomes so minimal that we can embrace the technology and move it forward?
Beautiful. What a great example. What a great lesson. Fear paralyzes people.
Yes, indeed.
Fear, by the way, fear does never comes from God. Normal fear, yes, is part of yourself and it prevents you from getting into an accident or doing something stupid. But constant paralyzing fear doesn't come from God. And you have to remove it by what? By learning, by taking a leap of faith, by trusting in what you're doing next and researching and moving forward, right?
Exactly.
And staying uncomfortable. I think the problem with people is that they get comfortable in their roles. And once they get comfortable, they stop growing. When you're learning all the time and embracing new technologies, you actually get uncomfortable. And by getting uncomfortable, there is nothing that can stop you because you're always growing. So instead of
Yes.
fearing AI, you're going to use it to your advantage.
Indeed. Yeah, let's use it to our advantage. But I believe, like usually people say there's two type of people. There's the follower and there's the leader, right? But I don't believe in such a theory, right? I believe that the Heavenly Father provided us all with the same capacity to learn. Yes, we may have different learning patterns or methodology on learning, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the capacity to be the best that we can be in whatever career or choice we make in life, right? So we have the same type of memory, CPU, the processor is all the same. It's granted to all of us as a gift. On top of that, we have the spirit that moves us, that keeps us going, right? But there are so many what I call resistors that try to prevent us in moving forward, and that comes in the form of culture, society. As you know, culture is programmable. So depending on the society or the country that you are from, that has an influence on your behavior and decision making. So as a human being, understanding that there are fundamental values that were programmed into you, that you can actually unprogram those values and reprogram yourself, right? So for example, making a move, coming to Canada, like Richard Lewis identified three cultural dimension, uh, recognizing that I'm a Latino and that we are uh, what he calls a multi-active um, realm in a cultural perspective, meaning that we can handle multiple things at once, right? In comparison to a reactive society, for example, like Asia. Asian people are more reactive. They listen more, and based on the listening, they will come up with a plan or a decision. For us, it's not the same. For us, we can handle multiple conversation and do multiple things because that's the culture that we were programmed with. That's the Latino fire,
Yeah,
right?
the
So
passion they call it.
Yes, exactly. So understanding your cultural values and how to reprogram yourself when you come to a new society or decide to embark on a new learning journey, adapt. You have the gift. The gift has already been given to us. The Lord gave us that gift, right? It's just a mental shift. And the key is discipline. Once you start, finish it, right? And then move on.
And yeah, and you're right. Human beings are being like one of our biggest skills is how fast we adapt to our environment. We have
Indeed.
this skill that we can adapt, but it requires discipline. It requires faith, right? And it
Yes.
requires moving forward and not looking back, just move forward.
Just move forward. You never know what tomorrow will bring, right? So
Exactly.
just keep going.
Genaro, thank you so much for your time. It's so valuable to me. Your lessons, incredible lessons. I'm going to ask you one last question before we close the
Yes,
podcast.
please.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, so for Canada will be in front of the 401, when we have 16 lanes full with traffic, what would you write in it?
Never give up.
Never give up.
Never give
That's beautiful.
up.
And it's true, right?
Yes, that's
You
why I
know,
keep going.
yeah, I'm a man of faith, right? I'm a believer.
Yes.
I'm a born again Christian, and lately in my life, after 51 years in this earth, I have come to realize that the never giving up part is for me is like this. I do all I can with all my might, with all my effort. And when my last straw is being drawn, when the last cup is taken out of my vessel, I surrender that to the Lord. And when I do that, I'm not giving up. I'm just saying, God, I can't anymore. Please help me. And when that happens, miracles show up in my life. It has happened one and another time. I remember, just to give you a quick example, when I was a senior technology leader for this big laboratory in Toronto, they were countrywide. We had a huge database problem, and the whole system came down. It was a centralized system, and everything came down. So we had like a lot of people that couldn't work, and we worked all night with my team. and nothing. Until finally I said, God, I can't, please, I need a miracle. And sure enough, I took a little break with one of my senior database analysts. We came back and we noticed something in a table that was blocked that nobody who has been able to catch. And we solved the problem in 2 minutes.
You see that?
And by 5 a.m., everything was up and running again.
Never
But
give up.
when I went to my last term, like I went to the bathroom and said, God, Jesus, please help me. That I don't know what to do anymore. We've been here for 24 hours and it doesn't work still.
He lives in us, right? He dwells in us, and he's always there to answer to his children. So you reach out, he was there. You saw the light right away. So
it happened to me this morning. I have people in 9 countries. We're a software company. We built applications for banking and insurance industry. And we had sent a wire to pay a person in South America, and usually it takes 3 days. This wire has been lost for over 2 months and nothing. And we were getting worried, like that doesn't come to my level. It only comes to my level when my team cannot resolve it. So the VP of finance said, David, I don't know what else to do. And it wasn't a significant amount of money. I mean, for a company size that we are, it wasn't. But if you look at it in the world view, it was a lot of money. So I just prayed. This morning, I'm still like, Lord, please allow me to have the bank get the money back to us. It's been 2 months. And I just don't want to lose that money. It takes so much to make profits for this company. And just to let it go like that. And so allow the bank to return the money to us. When I was talking to my CFO this morning, I was asking him, how is it going with this wire? And he said, oh, don't worry, David. The wire just showed up by, as a miracle in the other side, in the other country today. So like the prayer answer was like that.
yes, it's the Lord works in mysterious ways, right? And if you
How
don't,
many hours, we wasted with the bank trying to resolve it, hours and hours, and getting on hold, and they couldn't find out what happened to the wire.
and then suddenly, boom, it appears.
But it required a prayer.
Yes, indeed. Every day we need to have those prayers to guide our lives, and yeah, so he will always be there for us as long as we keep the faith and follow the rules, right?
Right. And you made me remember all this because you were saying how we have this body, but we have a spirit that moves the body.
Yes,
Right?
indeed.
And that's the truth. And so if you believe that you are a spirit that lives in a body that has a soul, then
Yeah,
you know that
actually,
somebody created that spirit.
yeah. So in my belief, right? Because the gift of the Spirit is a special gift, right? So we have the body, and what moves the body is the soul. So all of us have the soul, right? All human beings, regardless of religion or all living beings, actually, even the trees, everything that's living in this world created by the Almighty has a soul. It shares the soul of the Creator. But the Spirit is a special gift, only granted to those that actually look for the Lord and ask and live in harmony with the Lord's commandments and the Lord's requirement for humanity, which is love one another. You live in harmony and you lead by love, then that gift of the spirituality is granted to you.
It's beautiful. So well said. So well said. And I know this is a technology podcast with leadership, but
But we
it
shifted.
requires faith, right? It
It's the
requires faith to
faith,
become a great leader. You have to have,
indeed.
and eventually you're going to have to have a step where you don't know where you're going to land in water or you're going to land in solid ground or in the
Yes.
air.
Or in Canada, like I landed in 1993.
Exactly. God bless.
Thank
People
you.
would like to ask more about you. Where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, right? Genaro Liriano. right, on LinkedIn. They can send me emails directly, right, at genaroliriano@gmail.com. Yes, I have Instagram and Facebook, but I keep those more for my family, for personal purposes, but more on the professional side, I mainly use LinkedIn. So anyone can reach out to me through LinkedIn or
just like me, for
email.
sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. God bless and have a
Thank
beautiful
you.
rest of the week.
Yeah. Take care,
Cheers.
David. Okay. Bye-bye. A pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.